This is the first use on the computer.
Oh, got it running finally.
Finally, it was a whole thing. It was an entire thing. Um,
The saga continues. Is it finally over now? Is it all running and everything's
it
good?
should be over now. Everything should be over.
Mm-hmm.
So, whenever I had posted that video of the computer running and everything,
Mm-hmm.
I noticed that the RAM wasn't lighting up, and I googled it, and there were some people who were like, "Oh yeah, you got to manually turn it on sometimes," and this, that, and the other thing. So I was like, "Oh, okay, well maybe I have to manually turn it on." But I went to go install the software, and it wouldn't do anything, and it wouldn't display out. I'm like, "What the fuck?" So
Okay.
it took me like 2 hours of Googling, and they're like, oh, if the RAM's not seated all the way, it won't boot.
Oh my
So,
God, you had the exact same problem. Man, if you had watched our build video, this is why you watch every piece of content that comes on the channel there, Neil. Because if you had watched our build video, you would have seen us have the exact same problem.
yeah, I took and I looked at everything, and I pushed on it even still. I'm like, it still, like, looks like it's not. Like, it felt like it was in. So I
Mm-hmm.
was like,
Yeah,
I
me
tried
too.
it again, and I was like, you have to rank on that
Mm-hmm.
shit. And
Yeah,
that scared the hell out of me.
yeah. There's a certain click that happens. At least it happened for ours. That you really have to push on it, and it feels like it's in, but it just isn't.
Time to get your fix. It's a horrible gaming podcast. It's not good, it's not great. Horrible gaming podcast. It's not even what you would call fair. It's really not that good. Horrible Gaming Podcast.
Hello, my name is Zachariah with Old Man Gaming, and for whatever reason, you have decided to tune into another horrible gaming podcast. But I am not alone, nor am I ever. With me is,
Neil, aka a tiny wizard.
and yeah, we're gonna go over some news. We're gonna talk about the world of video games for probably a longer period than either one of us think we're going to talk about. But before we get into that, we got to do a couple of credits, as usual. Number one, if you're watching this on YouTube, behind the fancy timestamps, you will see fancy graphics. Any of them that are originally created for this channel are created with any original graphics for this channel by Mr. Mark Bell. We thank him for that. And as far as the theme song goes, the theme song for this show and all the shows here at OMG are provided by the man who makes the music, my brother, Nick Van Sliders. We thank him for that.
Horrible Gaming Podcast.
All right, so with that out of the way, we do our first segment, our most important segment, and that is fan interaction. That is where we, the co-hosts, talk to you guys, the fans. We kind of read out all the comments that we see anywhere on any piece of media that we can find them. We riff on them, we answer questions, all the fun stuff. So let's get into it. First, Jason commented, State of Decay 2 has one more bounty pack to release. Then they have one for every month, and they automated the bounty pack rotation. So they don't need to manually do it anymore, which is very interesting, Jason. I actually responded to that because we were talking about the whole games as service thing and single player, kind of taking notes from games as service, and I don't really think anything is a games as service anymore, or everything is, that sort of thing. That kind of conversation we've been having. So I responded and said that's really cool. It is still a very GAS feature. Not saying it was bad or anything, just using it as an example of GAS features ending up everywhere nowadays. To which he then responded back to me. I was more focused on the question of whether the game would work without the devs, and they seem to have made it mostly so that it won't need them. Not to say that they'll stop doing things for it though. They still occasionally do things for State of Decay 1. This is true. The thing is, though, is with the bounty pack, there is still a server. There's still an internet connection that's disseminating it to the games. And if the devs decided to turn that off, that feature would go away. Like it would just be stuck on the last bounty pack that uploaded permanently, I would think. So just saying that, but overall, you're completely correct, Jason. I think that it is interesting how they do things, and I do want to say right now, I wasn't insulting Undead Labs at all. State of Decay 2 is one of my all-time favorite games, and while they have made some interesting choices with their DLCs that I don't necessarily agree with, which I've said on the stream multiple times, I don't need to go into it here. They are really good at updating the game, staying with the game, and adding new features to the game, even though it isn't technically a games as a service. But basically, we were kind of using it as an example back and forth. Is all that broke down to. Anything to add to that, Neil?
No, I don't think there's anything to add to that. I mean, a games as a service. I mean, like you said before, it's kind of a nebulous concept at this point.
It is because it really has become one.
It's thrown around and also avoided in such a way because I think there's no real banner way to do it. Like, there's good examples, but even still,
the thing is
like implementations of games as a service only work certain ways for certain games. There's no
right.
There's no way to blanket it.
The thing is my problem is that everybody has either a games as service is evil connotation about it, or they don't care. But like the people who have that games as service evil sort of situation, like that just hear that sentence and make them cringe. I mean, so many games just have so many aspects of it. It doesn't make me cringe anymore because a developer saying it's games as service or even not saying it's games as service doesn't mean anything to me anymore because they've been so kind of up and down with what games as service is and what it should be expected and taking some features and not taking others that I feel like games as service is just afraid. Like it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any difference to me anymore. It's just been so overly used and overly hated and overly blamed that like it just doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't do anything for me because you tell me games as service. I'm like, okay, what is that going to be? Does that mean a subscription fee? Does that mean that we're going to have weekly bullshit that we have to do every week? Does that mean that we're just going to get free updates regularly with content? Like what does games as service mean anymore? It's just no. I don't know. It just doesn't matter. You know what I mean?
Right.
So then we go to the Kev Tutal. It's all him after that. Theme song says it all. Really not that good. Well, we're not false advertising here, Kev. Kev, oh damn. I'm sorry, man. I am sorry that USB hub didn't work. No, it was definitely said off the record that it failed. Okay. Yeah, it failed, so just so that everybody knows what the hell is going on with that, my Xbox, I have an original Xbox. It's got 3 USB ports. 2 of them decided to die. The one that didn't die is the one that I have used basically for years, whereas the other ones just had things plugged into them permanently. So for whatever reason, I'm very scared that the one is going to die, and I know what you're thinking. Oh, he's a PC gamer. Why does he care anymore? Well, I do all the OMGW capturing on my Xbox. So all of the matches, because I have 2019 on my Xbox. I don't want to buy 2019 again digitally because it's always like $60. And I don't want to buy a 2-year-old game that's $60 that servers are shut down. Especially since WWE 2K22 is coming out this year. Fingers crossed it's not a shit show. I'm going to actually get 2022 and update the OMGW roster to that one on my PC, and then it'll be wonderful. But I need to get through this season and at least one more season to do that, realistically. So with that said, it's very hard to capture, have a game, and have the controllers all with only one USB. So Kevin had recommended me a USB hub. I do want to say, Kev and Neil, that USB hub actually says it's high speed. It actually says it cleanly on the box. Because I looked back at it, and yeah, so it just doesn't work. So the high-speed thing doesn't work for whatever. I'm just going to try and make it work with plugging and plugging in whatever. But
Well-
thank you, Kev, for the recommendation anyway. I appreciate it. I got Returnless Record, and if anybody wants to buy it, I'll sell it to them for like $10 because GameStop doesn't take it, and I still have it because Amazon did Returnless Return.
Well, I would say, though, with something like that, high speed just can mean, like, high speed for maybe one device. I think...
It doesn't have one device. I only plugged one device into it.
Oh, well, never mind then.
Yeah, I mean, it should
straight.
work. It should
'Cause I've had
100% work, and it doesn't.
Yeah, I've had stuff like that before, and even, like, chargers and stuff that I've had. Like, I have one of my wall plug chargers for my phone. It's got multiple plugs on it, and it's like a 65-watt wall charger. So, like, when I plug my phone in it, like, I can get a half charge from nothing in like 10 minutes. It's super fast. But if I were to plug something else into it, it automatically cuts that way down. So, like, it could be one of those things where it's like, yeah, sure, it says it can do this, but that's under the assumption that you're only doing one thing at once with it, you know.
Right.
But yeah, hopefully you find. So you got a different one, or
Nope.
you're
just unplugging and plugging back in. I did some efficiency stuff on the Xbox so that the Xbox itself has everything on it that it needs to run without the external. And I don't really play any games on it, so if I need to play one of those games, I'll plug it back in. But for the overhead, the only thing going in and out of that slot is the USB for capturing, which is how it was before. So just fingers crossed that doesn't die too.
Yeah.
Kev then says, ew, skin you could peel off. My God, Neil, see a doctor. That needs proper medical attention. So I remember this because I didn't say anything at the time, but after he pointed it out, it did sound weird. You were talking about the latex paint in the green paint, and you were like, oh, it's latex paint, so it gets hard, and it's like skin you can peel off.
Yeah. Yeah, it's basically like peeling off skin.
It's not like, no, there's so many peels of things that you could have done other than that. Seriously. That's a terrible example. How often are you peeling skin off yourself? You should see a doctor.
I just got done telling you about how I just got randomly sunburnt.
This is true. They didn't hear that though.
Oh yeah, whenever I get sunburnt, I usually peel. So and the summer is about the only time where I go outside and exist in sunlight. So
well, that's all for the show, everybody. We'll see you see you never, because we're canceled. Because that was gross. Okay, moving right along. Blizzard needs to wipe the management slate clean and replace everyone above production work. Is Kevin's solution to Blizzard's problem.
Well, they've been hemorrhaging more people.
Look, I think Blizzard. Blizzard's problems are more systemic than just getting rid of the CEOs and the people in management. I just do. Because the people above those CEOs and people in management are people at Activision who are CEOs and people in management. So I think every game company has a serious corruption running through it. And I mean, it's going to take a lot to fix the game industry, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And then we go, Steam Deck comes with running Steam OS, which is based on Linux. Valve said you can put Windows on it, which would then give you access to Gamepass. I'm sorry I wasn't clear last week. It's fine. It's no problem. We had already kind of come to that conclusion. Then he says, Friday day shift. Those are rookie numbers. Gonna need to bump those up if you want to get somewhere around here. That is definitely a quote from somewhere, and I can't remember what it is because I'm tired. And I'm sorry, Kev, and I'm sure I'm going to get shit for not remembering what it is, but it's definitely a quote from somewhere. And that's it. That's it for Fan Traction, unless you got something to add, man.
No, I don't think so.
All right. I do want to just go ahead and throw a question out here, because anybody who watched
that in a while.
I know. I decided to switch it up. Anybody who's watched our OMFD for August, that was posted on Saturday. Basically, we answered a question from this one provided from Jason the Professor. And personally, I really like the question. We've already answered it as Foundation people. We already answered it. So I'd like to hear you guys out there, what you guys think of this question. And the question is: in an alternate universe where 2 games/franchises were developed as a single game, what is this amalgamation briefly described? Example: Grand Theft Auto, Silent Hill. A race car driver that ties to the mob wakes up tied up in the open trunk of a car. After using nearby materials to free himself, he finds himself alone with evidence that a rival family has taken his beloved car, and beyond that, his wife and kid. As he sets off toward the mark on the map, he finds himself in eldritch town of Silent Hill, stalked by twisted facsimiles of mob enforcers, forced to perform macabre and bizarre races by phantom racers, and along the way explore the darkest depths of his psyche. So I just like this whole put 2 franchises together. So if you guys out there feel like answering the question in the comments below, we'll read them out next week and talk about them. Especially since we're going to have a very short period between this recording and the next recording, so we're going to need shit to talk about. So feel free to add it. Yeah, that's it. That's it for Frantraction. That's everybody who commented.
Horrible Gaming Podcast.
All right, so our first talking point, I'm really excited to talk about this. If you guys are native to the channel and you watch all of our stuff, you'll have noticed that there's already a review/first impressions video that I posted on Monday about it. So go check that out for kind of a very focused, in-depth review of it. But I got to play the open beta of Back 4 Blood quite a bit over the weekend. I'm super excited about it. I wanna talk about it, Neil.
Alrighty, well, go on ahead.
Well, what do you want to know?
Well, let's
you
put
said
it
this
this
was
way.
going to spiral off.
This is it's not anything that I really want to know. There's one thing that I do know that actually just pumped the brakes for me on this thing as a whole.
Okay. All right.
But no, let's actually talk about it first. So
right.
I mean, I didn't end up playing it, but I did watch a little bit of the stream with you and the Phils.
Hopefully not the first 40 minutes, because we had serious technical difficulties.
Oh no, it was the end of it. It was the absolute end of it that we caught.
So there was definitely some technical difficulties we had, and if you watch the stream with the Phils, because I did a community stream earlier that day with Jason and Danny. Danny had to bow out. She actually got sick. I hope you're feeling better, Danny. But me and Jason kind of finished it, so it was the 3 of us. And then later that day I did another one with the Phils, and Jason actually came back, because Jason is enjoying this game as well. I think every time I played with Jason. So, yeah, the Phils one, we like at the tail end of the first one. We actually ended that stream a little bit early. It was only like an hour and 13 minutes because we got through a run. Well, we died at the end of the first run, and it took us about an hour to get there. And we couldn't get the game to like let us in. It just kept saying matchmaking failed over and over again. So when we went back in with the Phils, we got the same thing. We switched to everybody else's game. We got that for a while. It took us like 40 minutes, and then finally we got in, which was a real bummer because I was like, I've been wanting Phil to see this game because they've added aspects to this game that I just think he's going to love in the long run. But we finally got into it. We finally got to play it, and it was just fucking phenomenal. Fucking phenomenal. I also played it alone in quick play for about 40 minutes, which is the actual video that I used for capturing for the review. And then I also played it one more time last night, as of this recording, which would be Saturday night, with Jason for some time, and that was absolutely awesome. We basically did the entirety of the review of the beta in like a 2-hour session. So it works a lot like the old Left 4 Dead's. There's episodes. They take place in 4 acts, basically. Those 4 acts run a lot the same way that the old ones is. You're going from a safe room to a safe room, fighting just hordes and hordes and hordes of zombies. You get to the safe room, you kind of you have this like break. Then it loads you back in, and you have to like rearm yourself. You open the door, you head to the next save room, and then usually the last act has some sort of like big finale thing that you have to do. Yeah, there's hordes of freaks, hordes of zombies, hordes of everything. They really, this beta really gave you a taste of everything they're offering, not just on the front of how it's like Left 4 Dead, but also on the front of what they've added to it to make it so much more playable and give it this replayability. And that's the card system, which really, really had me worried when I first heard about it. Because I've been watching the news on this game. Obviously, I've been very excited. Anybody who knows, I've been watching the news on it for a long time, and just card systems and collectible card systems have just shown up in all games, even though they don't really belong all the time. And this game, I was like, man, I don't know that that's gonna work. I feel like maybe that's shoehorned in. I don't know that I like that. Once I got to play with it, it was fantastic. It gives so much more replayability to the game, and it allows you to define your play style, especially with the characters, which Left 4 Dead never did. Left 4 Dead had 4 characters. 1 and 2 had 4 different characters, and they were basically skins of the same model. There was no like behind the scenes like equipping stuff or anything like that. This one, you can basically set up how do you want to play as a support character? Do you want to play as a medic? Do you want to play a shooter? Do you want to play a melee guy? You can really set it up that way with this card system, and it's just I really feel like they're kicking on all cylinders. Like I said, there was a couple of things that bothered me, but it's a beta, so like how much can you hold against them? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like you're gonna have connectivity issues in an open beta a month and a half before it's coming out. You just are. Like I've never played one that didn't have it. Although I do want to say, while I'm sure other people had problems, for me, once I got into a game, I never got booted and I didn't have bad lag. And I think that's pretty good for a beta. Like I did have some trouble getting into games, never had problems inside the games ever. They always ran very smoothly for me. They were very good. The only thing that I'll say is there's this bug that happened yesterday at the tail end of the final act of the final thing that they had available. They had 2 4-act things available to you. 2 4-act settings, right?
Yeah.
And they actually make it so that you can just run through them like a game. You don't have to like keep jumping out or whatever. So like we did the first 4, then we went into the second 4. We get to the last mission, and the zombies that are supposed to swarm you, like basically what the mission is all the zombies are coming out of this mine. You have to take this big howitzer, and you have to it takes a really long time to load and fire, and basically you have to fire it 5 times at the mine entrance to collapse the mine to stop the zombies from coming in. And like it bugged out so the zombies wouldn't spawn. So basically that last final thing, you'd go in with the 4 people, you just slowly load the howitzer, shoot it, slowly load the howitzer, shoot it 5 times, and then you just drive away, which was kind of comical. But other than that, I didn't notice any real bugs in play. One thing I also enjoyed is that when people did drop out, you got bots that were relatively, like, obviously they did things that were stupid, but they were relatively competent as far as getting kills and supporting you, which I really enjoyed that as well. There's a ping system in this one that was never in the first one. They added the aim down sights, which was never in the first one. There's so many more characters. There's actually going to be 8 characters. I thought there was only going to be 4, but you get to play as 5 characters in the beta. Well, you got to play as 5 characters in the beta, and then there was 3 characters that were locked, so that's exciting. And what's even more that they added to it is that each one of those characters has their own ability, bonuses, buffs, and powers to themselves. So they have something extra to the character that you're playing, so there's even a strategy to that. So I'm very hyped for this. There's been very few AAA experiences that I've seen. Well, actually, there's been no AAA. I'll be honest. There's been no AAA experiences I've seen for probably the last 2 years that have really like been exactly what I wanted them to be, this actually looks like it's got a chance to being that and more. So go ahead and ask your questions. I think I've kind of given the biggest overview that I can.
It sounds good, and it's definitely. It's definitely sounds like it's evolved that Left 4 Dead formula.
Yeah.
For sure. But, I saw the open beta was going on, and I was going to actually remote install it when I was at work, so that way I could get home and play it afterwards with my wife. And I found out that there's no split screen.
No couch co-op?
No couch co-op, and
that is a bummer.
It's going to be that way in the final release too. And honestly, that on its own just plummeted my excitement for the game. Because
really, like that's that important to you?
Yeah, because it was the same with they did that with Halo 5 also. They cut out the split screen co-op / split screen multiplayer as well. Mm-hmm. And it was the same situation. The second I found out about that, I've never co-opted Halo 5's campaign because you have to go in, get somebody who wants to play it, this, that, and the other thing.
Right.
There are some games, some experiences that when you play them, they are experienced a certain way. And while, sure, Back 4 Blood is not Left 4 Dead,
right,
it has very much made itself out to be, hey, guys, you remember this thing, we're picking up that mantle and we're being that thing. And to leave that on the cutting room floor, for me, that's a big thing for me.
It's not doesn't bother me at all.
For me,
I thought you were going to be bothered by the card system.
No, I'm okay with a card system in a game, depending on how it functions. I didn't like Fallout 76's. That was stupid.
Right.
But honestly,
it
just depends on the
that's what I
implementation.
thought. Like when I first heard the card system for Back 4 Blood, I was like, Fallout 76, no, please don't do this. Please don't do this. But it's just so much better than that. I was so much more wowed by the card system. In this. I'm kind of surprised that you're that bothered by the couch co-op. It wasn't even a blip on my radar. The only reason we played couch co-op with that game in the first place is because you couldn't really play it online. Like at first anyway, because when that first came out, you just got friends over, Xbox Live wasn't as prominent, I guess, is what I would say.
Yeah. And like I get that too, but like there's other games out there that are like that, like with Smash Brothers, Smash Ultimate. I love Smash. I will play it with a group of people any chance I get, but like I have Nintendo Online. I have zero desire to go online and play that game.
Well, and I get that. I feel like a Nintendo game, to me, like if somebody had said to me Mario Golf was coming out with no local multiplayer, that to me would be like, how do you expect to make any money off that? Like that to me, like I don't know. I just never thought of Left 4 Dead or Left 4 Dead 2 as a party game, I guess would be the best way to describe it. Like getting people together to play it. I never thought of those games as that. And you did. You're right. You did do that with them. I don't think I ever played Left 4 Dead 1 or 2 online. So like, I'm not necessarily disagreeing with you. It never even crossed my mind in this day and age that it would be anything other than play on the. And I will say now that you got the PC, Kayla can play on the Xbox and you can play on the PC.
Which is true, and like that's a viable option. But then at the same time, like, sure, we're both playing together at the same time on the same game, but there's also something to be said too about physically sitting there next to the person playing it, doing it, whatever.
So people are gonna call you a boomer in this segment. I know that.
And if that's the case, that's fine. But that. From me, myself, how I experience those games, that is how I see it. That's the experience that I'm looking for. Like, I'm not saying like, this is the game is bad if it doesn't have it. Like,
right. I see what you're saying.
It looked good, but it immediately lost a lot of its appeal once I found out that it didn't have split screen. and I understand too, going forward as games get bigger and bigger, there are technical limitations,
Yeah.
and as creators, they have an artistic idea as to what they want their end result to be,
Right.
and they don't want to, cut or sacrifice anything that they don't have to just to put in a feature that other people may or may not want.
Right.
So like I also get that too, but like for me myself, like I said, it's just this game in particular.
I see what you're
fallen
saying.
off of my radar.
I see what you're saying because of that. I don't think that like you and I don't play in person. We haven't played in person in a long time. We very rarely play in person together. I don't play with the Phils in person. I don't play with Jason in person. He lives in another state. So to me, it's like I feel like the couch co-op thing, and I know a lot of people want it. We talked about it with Borderlands because the couch co-op was so nightmarish when it was when it launched.
Oh yeah.
And it did affect me because me and Phil had our usual like get together. Whenever a Borderlands comes out, we always get together and try and play as long as we can in the night through as much of the game as we can. So we did do that as per se we usually do, and we really felt that then. So I get that, but like I can maybe count on my hand the number of times I've played games with somebody in person in the last like 5 years. So it just doesn't even register to me as a thing. And I also feel like one thing they're trying to do with this game, and it's very evident from when you're playing the beta and what they've added to it, is they're trying to take this game from that that kind of like co-op or party experience, or like a novelty game. Like I love Left 4 Dead. I love Left 4 Dead 2, and I don't want to insult the people who play it. Like, people still play it because it's so great. But it is kind of a novelty act on certain things. It was a very niche game with just like 4 acts, and it was just kind of like an in-the-moment game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they're very clearly trying to take it from that and make it into something more mainstream, something bigger, while still clinging to the stuff that made that game great. And I think they're actually striking a really good balance on that. I think that like there is also, I talked about it in the review, one of my biggest concerns is I do want to have a way to play this by myself, just because especially when you put something in the game like a grindy aspect such as collecting cards and stuff, I want to be able to just like not talk to somebody and just run through it over and over again so that I can grind out stuff, whereas I'm sure there's the opposite end of the spectrum. I know Phil Billy for a fact would much rather, when he's doing the grindy stuff, be playing with somebody else so that he has like chit chat and something for his brain, whereas me, I just like to just do it over and over again in silence,
Yeah.
But I wanted a solo. I wanted a way to play this, and there is like a little option in the bottom that says solo campaign, but it's just blacked out for the beta. So I'm guessing that is going to be an option later on, which is nice. So I don't know. I feel like when you play the game, you really feel the love for Left 4 Dead and Left 4 Dead 2 in it. There are some downsides though. There is some things that I was left wanting on it, and namely was the freaks.
Okay.
So, like, sorry, I had to take a drink. My throat.
I was like,
my throat is killing me today. I don't know why. I haven't done a lot of recordings lately. I would think it would be well rested, but for some reason, it is just killing me today. So, like, okay, so you remember the freaks in Left 4 Dead 2?
Yeah.
Do you remember, like, do you have a very clear image of what they were and what they did still to this day?
Not really.
Really?
I primarily played the first one. The first one's the only one that I own.
Okay, Left 4 Dead 1.
The second one I played a handful of times.
Okay, Left 4 Dead 1. Do you have a clear image of the freaks from that one?
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. And why do you think you have a clear image of the ones from that one?
Probably because they were the same.
They were like, I mean,
they had, it was very much
Personality.
you heard, well, not just that too. I think it's the fact that like they always had an audio indicator.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody on the screen would have, like, on the game would have a call out, say, "Oh, there's a smoker," or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
So then you would know, "Oh, okay, there's something around here."
Yeah, and like the ways they attacked you felt very unique too. I felt like,
Yeah.
like the jockeys and the tongue guys and the witches. The witches. I mean, just the witches right there.
Yeah.
You remember the fear you have when you had to, like, when you found a witch and she was in a hallway that you couldn't get around.
Yup.
So that's my biggest problem so far with Back 4 Blood is the freaks in this don't feel unique. They don't feel special. There's no real auditory thing. I mean, there's definitely call-outs from teammates. They'll be like, "Oh, we got a hawker," or "Oh, we got a bruiser," but when, like, their animations, their everything to them, there's just no personality there. There's no audio call. There's nothing like that. There's no like, "Oh man, I can hear him somewhere. I know he's here. I can hear him, but I can't see him." There's none of that, and that hurt my experience a little bit. Just because, like, they just kind of blended into the masses, really, which was a little bit of a bummer. To the point where, like, the bruisers are these big, like, one-armed monster things that, like, punch you. And then there's another thing called crushers, which are big one-armed monsters that look exactly like bruisers in the moment of the gunfight that just grab you and crush you instead of punching you. Like, that kind of stuff, it was just very samey, which was my biggest problem with it so far, is that the freaks really don't feel like man, I still have nightmares about one of those smokers catching you with his tongue and dragging you slowly towards him,
Yeah.
And you don't get that in this game, and I thought that was... There are, like, a handful of, like, really interesting design-wise creatures. They have one where it's a zombie that it's just the upper half of a human that's just stuck to the side of a wall, and it's like a landmine. If you walk too close to it, it just jumps out and grabs you and pins you down and starts eating you. Like, it launches the top half at you. That's a really cool design, but there's no, like, special auditory to know that it's around somewhere. There's nothing like that, and that hurt me a little bit. If I have to be a little bit negative, that would be my biggest negative to it.
Yeah, I don't know. That's, yeah. I feel like that would kind of take away from the actual experience, because it was, with Left 4 Dead, it was very much like you knew the scenario that you got dropped in. It was always the same, and for the most part, you knew where the general area was that some of these things would show up, because that was one of the greatest things, is they kind of got, like, randomly dropped into certain locations. So it was never like, "Oh, remember, around this corner, there's X, Y, and Z."
Yeah. Like, the map is the same, but they toy with this, like, element of roguelike. That like, not full roguelite. The map isn't different. The map's always the same, but, like, what you can do in it is always different. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing that might get to me. Did you notice at all if they still do that whole random sort of placement? They do? Okay.
So the thing that the upside of this game, and that's the thing that I loved, is like, aside from any of the issues that I have, you can just, the minute you start playing this, you can just feel the, like, love for the original two games. You know what I mean? Like, it just comes so quickly screaming out of your computer screen at you that you're like, "Oh my god, this really feels like they're trying to make a Left 4 Dead 3. But the maps have so many more things that randomly generate now too, where you have these, like, little things called toolkits that take up a utility spot, but if you have one, you can get into certain doors or certain chests. They have chests that drop with guns and ammo in them randomly around the locations. Certain doors can be openable on one playthrough, and then those doors aren't openable on another playthrough. So like there's sometimes a room there and sometimes there isn't. There, like, every time you go through, plus what they added to it is this thing called the corruption cards. Like, in addition to the cards that you're getting to give yourself perks, you have these things called corruption cards that keep getting drawn, which change the like they'll give buffs to your bad guys, they'll give buffs to the monsters, they'll spawn more monsters. There's a bunch though that like literally change kind of the way you move through the landscape. My favorite one that I got in the beta was called the Mist, and basically it just puts the whole map in this fog, this dense fog that makes it really hard to see in front of you. And it just changes the way you have to move through this map that you've gone through already 7 or 8 times. So that is still there 100%. And I would say that's one of its strongest things. I would actually say, as far as character-wise, too, the characters in this are so well done. They're well written. The powers make them interesting and unique. It's just, that... Those have more character than anything else in the game. And it shines through a lot.
Well, I mean, whenever it eventually launches, I'm sure I will try it. But
well, it's in Gamepass. You got to. I'm going to make
right.
it. Like, that's
okay.
going to happen. Like, you will have to try it. And you will have to play it with me. It's just going to happen.
Okay.
All right. Well, I mean, if you've got any other questions for me before we move on to the next one?
No, I do not.
All right.
Horrible Gaming Podcast.
All right, so we were scrounging the barrel for our second talking point a little bit today, but we're gonna talk about this. Phil Spencer got a chance to try the Steam Deck, and he says it handles great and that it runs Windows and Gamepass quite well. So basically, he just put it out in the world. Hey, these guys made a Gamepass handheld. Go buy it. So yeah, this is really interesting to me, and we've been going back and forth with Kev about whether or not this is a thing. You know, like if you could play it on Gamepass or whatever. You know, so there it is. It's answered. You can, and it runs good apparently.
Yeah, so I mean that's just another feather in this thing's cap.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still really curious to see how the Steam Deck is going to perform long term, given how they've marketed it, who they've marketed it towards, because Nintendo and Valve both have very different demographics. It's just Valve is like, hey, that's a good idea, let's do that too, but with our stuff.
Right.
Essentially, like, on paper, I get vibes of Sony with the PSP, but I don't think it's going to go that way.
Right.
Because the PSP, like, it was okay. The original PSP, like, before they tried the Vita, the PSP itself was fine. It definitely, it did the same thing. It was like, hey, Nintendo, you guys do the portable thing. We're going to do that too. We're going to put our stuff on it. But the games that were available toward, like, they were targeting a different demographic. And eventually it petered out because Sony just got all convoluted with it. But I don't think that same sort of mistake is going to be made with Steam, because Steam, I mean, anymore, it's pretty much they just have this mindset. They're focused on the games, is like, we are a storefront. Here's the things. Even with Epic coming in and throwing their money around, Steam's still number one, in PC, like as a PC platform. So I think that they very much have their wits about them as to what they want the Steam Deck to be, as in what they want it to be for people and what their goals are for it in the long term.
Like, I get kind of the knee-jerk reaction to compare it to the PSP, but I don't think they're comparable, just because the PSP, the problem with the PSP is that every game you bought on the PSP, you had to buy for the PSP, in addition to whatever you were also buying for your PlayStation games. Whereas Steam Deck has just built-in library already available to you. If you're on Gamepass, bam, you've got Gamepass, and anything you've already purchased on Steam is just available to you. Now, of course, if you're going into this as not a PC player, as looking to buy a PC for the first time, excuse me, sorry, my throat is killing me for some reason today. If you're looking at this to getting into Steam world for the first time, it's probably very similar to the PSP because you're going to have to re-buy those games and buy them for the first time or whatever. But at the same time, even then, you got Games Pass right there. You got everything on Games Pass. So I think right there it has its advantages that isn't there. And the initial demographic for Switch and Steam Deck very different. Not going to disagree with you on that front. But at the same time, I would argue that the demographic for PlayStation and Xbox are very different as well at this point. But they're still competitors. I think in the same way, you're looking at a competition between Switch and Valve. Maybe not as severe as your PlayStation and Xbox, but at the same time, I think there's some competition there. They're competing for the handheld market at this point. So it's especially with the OLED being released when it did, the Steam Deck announcing when it did, and what the prices are and what the OLED is giving you versus the Steam Deck. I just don't think it's a coincidence that this story kind of dwarfed the OLED, 5 days after it came out,
Yeah. I don't know. I get this. I not that I get this feeling. I do wonder what Steam's plan is going to be with the Steam Deck. Is this more so like is this going to be something like the Steam boxes that they tried to do, to where like, oh, we're doing this thing, it's kind of an experiment and to see where it goes, and it just kind of flubs right out of the gate, essentially? Or is it going to be one of those things to where they already have like a long-term plan for the Steam Deck? Like, are they assuming that it's going to be an automatic success given what it objectively does and can do?
I'd love to see their pre-order numbers because I think that's what they're basing it all off of. I think at the end of the day, that's what I think your Steam box didn't hit the numbers they needed it to hit for it to be worth pursuing. With this one,
yeah,
I'd love to see the pre-order numbers because, let's face it, this has been pretty popular in the news for the last couple of weeks. Like it's been very visible by everybody, and it hasn't gone away. They're still talking about it. It wasn't like a blip on the radar like the Alienware handheld was, however months ago when we talked about it.
Yeah.
I
already forgot about it.
Right, exactly. This hasn't come and gone. Like, this is still in our... And I think the reason it hasn't come and gone is the price for what it is. Like, I mean, this is a low-end PC that you can travel around with for cheap, basically, in my opinion. And that's huge to me. Like, that's huge to me.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I think that they have something here. I don't think this is going away. Will this sell as much as the Switch? Time will tell. Personally, if I'm a betting man, I'm going to say no, just because Switch has that market share, Switch has that notoriety, Switch has that presence, But at the same time, do I think it's going to be a competitor? Do I think it's going to take money away from Switch? Yes. And I also want to point out the chip shortage, we've already been told, has affected now the Nintendo Switches. And the Nintendo Switches have become very, very, very scarce. If that scarcity increases or even gets smaller and the Steam Deck comes out at the right time amidst that, okay, you definitely have a contender, because those grandmas are going to go to the store too. They're not going to be able to get the Switch, but they got to get little Timmy something, and the Switch Deck is a comparable price,
I also, since you bring up the chip shortage, I do
Sure.
wonder how many of these they're going to have available at launch.
I mean, that's true too. Like how much has this been affected by it? Is really interesting.
I'm willing to wager that it's going to be along the lines of what happened with the Series X and PS5. I think that they've only got, a comparable handful of them to sell out to people.
I think if that's true, then Valve has made a big mistake, personally. Because, I mean, we've had enough time to see what's going on there. You know what I mean? To see the
Right.
mistakes of PlayStation and Xbox. We've had enough time to see it. And they announced well after we had seen all the controversy of that shit. And while we have already heard that they've set up a bunch of pre-order stuff that really helps alleviate the scalpers, get rid of the scalpers, that sort of thing. I still sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a second. I still think that they had plenty of information to go, you know what? We're not going to tell anybody about this until we have more stock to release. You know what I mean? To build up that stock, we're going to wait another 6 months until we have enough to honor all our pre-orders and not upset the people out there who want this. You know, so I got to say, if a year after we saw what happened with Sony and Xbox, they do the same thing, then that's some dumb shit on Valve's part. And that is a serious mistake on their part.
Yeah, especially given the fact that, like, with the PS5 and the Series X, we knew they were coming.
Right.
It was just, like, a matter of when.
Right.
But with this, nobody knew anything about anything. Like, this came out of nowhere, and we're all like, what? So if they don't have enough... I'm expecting that. I'm 100% expecting no one can get their hands on them, that people will buy them and inevitably throw them up on, whatever eBay, Facebook Marketplace, this, that, and the other for thousands and thousands of dollars. I'm fully expecting that because that's what happens with everything now.
I mean, experience has told you right, but the problem is your experience... It's so obvious that everybody should be able to see that at this point. You know?
Right.
So, like, while I'm not disagreeing with you at all that could possibly be what happened or is what happened. If it is what happens, man, they just shit the bed on that. They completely shit the bed on that if that's what happens. Just because, like you said, like, and with Xbox and Sony, we knew they were coming, but they didn't even have to say... They didn't even have to say it was coming this year. You know what I mean? They could have still put it off, whereas they just decided to brute force it through, which was a giant mistake. Steam didn't have any pressure. Nobody even knew this thing was a thing, you know?
Right.
So if they made that mistake was definitely made in direct response to the Switch OLED. Like, they were like, we need to announce this to fuck them up. And... if that's the way they did it, if they did that to do that way, and they don't have enough stock for it, then there's just no excuse. I will be personally tearing them a new asshole if that's what happens come Steam Deck release day. You know.
Well, especially if that is their line of thought that, oh wow, this is like Nintendo's going to release this upgraded Switch, we need to make our announcement too. If they're threatened by an updated screen, sound processor, and a little bit bigger battery on something that already exists, what does that say for the confidence of what they're putting out too? So I don't know as if that I can't imagine that's their line of thinking, though. I think it's one of those that they were trying to ride off of Nintendo's announcement and be like, yeah, you guys want to spend your money on this? How about this instead? Right. Sort of situation.
I mean, and that's a mistake. I will be the guy who says that's a mistake if that's what they're doing, you know?
Right.
But I don't know. I still think that they've got something here. Regardless of whether it's a mistake or not. I think that we've been talking about it in the games industry for too long for it not to be going to be a force, you know?
Right.
People are pre-ordering this thing, you know? It's not going anywhere.
Yes.
All right. That's all I got on the subject unless you want to go somewhere else with it.
No, that's all I got too.
Let's move to odds and ends then.
Horrible Gaming Podcast.
That brings us to what's going to be our final segment, That's Odds and Ends. That's where we collect the little stories, stories that don't necessarily deserve a full talking point, but we want to tell you guys about them. We want to riff on them. We just want to point them out, that sort of thing. Now, I have 4. Neil has 2. So I do believe I should go first on this one, right?
Yeah, probably.
All right. So my first one, I want to give a big shout out and hope he's doing good to Adam Sessler. Oh, I'm sorry. I actually have 5. My bad. 5. To Adam Sessler from G4. Now, I've said on this channel multiple times that I think Adam Sessler is the best gaming journalist in the business right now since he has come back with G4. His reviews are top-notch, entertaining, and good, and thoughtful. His editorials are the same thing. He posted on Twitter that he basically had to go to the ER for back pain. He has something called radiculopathy, something like that. He made a lot of jokes about it, but you could tell that there was something serious there, that he has to now have emergency surgery, which is why you haven't seen him on G4 recently. And I just hope he gets better, because the gaming industry needs him right now. We need cranky Adam Sessler right now. He's just so good. I'm so glad he's back. I hope swift and healthy recovery to him. Definitely.
Yeah, I've noticed that Gerard's been taking over a lot
Yeah.
more. Which, by the way, I think it's awesome that Gerard's going to be on G4 too.
He's good.
I actually recently kind of started watching G4 stuff a bit more, and then I did notice it was like the past 2-3 videos it's been Gerard, and I didn't know what had happened.
Right.
So yeah, hopefully he's doing all right.
One of those moments where Twitter comes in handy. It's usually a cesspool, but you get news there first sometimes, which is
Was that an Adam Sessler joke?
He calls his thing the cesspool.
Yeah, that's what I said. It's the cesspool.
No, I've always just called it a cesspool. I didn't even mean to it's not a good cesspool. Sessler's is a good cesspool. You should watch all of his reviews though. His reviews are amazing.
I've been systematically going through.
He's absolutely
actually
phenomenal.
just to shout out one of the videos that he did. His one on the whole get good culture.
Yes.
That was like, yes, I was just like clapping the whole time. Like, yes, all of those things.
Yes. Yeah. All of his videos have been spot on. And rarely do I see, like, when I'm watching video game journalists, somebody that I'm like, universally do I agree with his opinions. You know what I mean? Like, and almost everything that comes out of his mouth, I'm like, yes, exactly. I'm with you, exactly. Like, and I think that he's just killing it. He's just killing it. So I hope a speedy recovery. And honestly, aside from all that, I don't want the guy to have back pain. He's a cool dude, so I hope he gets better, just in general.
Yeah.
So should I go again then?
Yeah, I'll probably go. Yeah, go again.
Okay. So this is kind of a crazy one, and the reason I wanted to put this in the odds and ends is we've talked about this a couple of times on the channel, and I didn't know that this had happened, but I can't remember the name of the original company, but the company that developed Journey to the Savage Planet was bought by Google Stadia.
Okay.
As a first-party developer. This came up between us. We talked about it a couple of times, where we said this is genius because they could be brought on, they'll get all that Google money, then Google will scrap Stadia, they'll go independent with all the Google money. Well, didn't quite work out that way. Google actually, since they owned it, shut down their studio. So
because what, Google is hemorrhaging Stadia money?
Yeah, well, there had been a story, and I think we actually covered it on the podcast, that they had shut down a bunch of first-party developers for Stadia. But we didn't have a list. Apparently within that list was the company that was the developer that created Journey to the Savage Planet. So basically, if you're these guys, Google comes in and goes, we want to pay you all this money to make first-party stuff for Stadia. They go, yes, sure. They take the money. Google then goes, hey, we're shutting you down. Like literally, they bought them, they took the IP, and they threw it in the trash. So all the developers from it were like, okay. They left. They started something called Raccoon Games, and then purchased back the IP of Journey to the Savage Planet. So they're back,
I mean,
and they're making Journey to the Savage Planet. Still, it was just kind of a weird, like, we had talked about it so many times, I felt like, once I saw it in the news, that I had to kind of, like, bring that whole thread to a close, I guess you would say.
yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. It kind of sucks that they had to buy their own IP back
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
whatever.
I really, like, I don't understand why Google wasn't just like, hey, you can be independent again. Like, instead of, they're like, nope, we own the IP, we own your name, so fuck you. Like, that's some shitty shit to me.
Right.
Like, real shitty shit, in my opinion. So that's 2 of mine. I still have 3 to go. Do you want to do one of yours?
Well, yeah, I'll do one of mine. And
Okay.
speaking of IP getting thrown in the trash,
Okay.
Apple Arcade is getting a new Castlevania game, sort of, kind of.
Oh, I saw this. I almost put this on my list. Almost
Yeah.
did.
So this is a really weird thing. So there's a new Castlevania game, but it's not really new, but it's kind of new, but not really. It's called Castlevania Grimoire of Souls. And it's coming exclusively to Apple Arcade. Now, Grimoire of Souls may sound a bit familiar because it did, in fact, already come out in a small,
Yep.
contained launch in Canada. But it was really only briefly put up there, and they canned it after, I think it was something like 2 months, 3 months
Yeah.
on Android and iOS as well, I believe. And that was like 3 years ago, and now they're just bringing it back to Apple Arcade, which is, I mean, yay, Castlevania, but this is bizarre
Yeah. It's
that
bizarre.
this is even happening, and I am concerned as to what that game is going to eventually wind up being,
Yeah.
because it originally, when it launched in that small limited release, it was very much a super free to play microtransaction heavy sort of thing. So I really hope that it doesn't. I want another very pure side-scrolly Castlevania thing, especially because I've been playing through Symphony of the Night again somewhat recently before I go to bed every so often, so I'm already in that mood. But yeah, really weird. Especially, I don't think Konami's put anything out really, except for what hardcore. It was a hardcore or Contra. It was Contra. Terrible Contra game that came out 2 years ago that was an abomination.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
The one
yeah,
on Switch. Yeah.
It's bizarre. Absolutely bizarre.
All right. That is bizarre. I mean, yay Castlevania, but I think the world is ready for a AAA Castlevania entry. You know, especially with how successful the series was on Netflix. So I don't understand the logic behind Konami not either not doing it themselves or just getting a team to do it. You know.
Oh, Konami doesn't want to do anything with any of their IP at this
I
point.
know,
They just want to turn it into pachinko machines and
But that doesn't
crap
make any
like
sense
that.
to me.
Oh
You know what
yeah,
I mean?
no, it doesn't. It absolutely
Because
makes no sense.
You could even rent out the IP. Like Castlevania is so big, you could go to another third party developer and be like, "Hey, do you guys want to do Castlevania and just stick our name on it? Pay us." That developer would pay you absolutely, because they want to do Castlevania, depending on the developer you went to.
Right.
I feel like it's such a bad business decision on their part to not do anything with their IP, or even sell them off for paydays.
Right.
It's literally like you've got free money sitting in your basement that you just won't use. It's ridiculous.
I mean, maybe they're thinking it's some sort of backup plan when the pachinko thing inevitably, I'm surprised it hasn't yet, but fizzles out into nothing. Because, we have, there's been no Silent Hill, anything like that, to where we've had other game series step in. It's almost like the whole Bethesda Obsidian thing, to where...
Or the Back for Blood.
Back for Blood, even.
Yeah.
There's everybody wants this one thing, and the people who make the one thing aren't either doing it or doing it right, so then another studio has to come in and do it.
Right. It doesn't make any sense. Okay, so you got one more left, so I suppose I should do a one or two more, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So next one I have is, and this one, I don't know how to feel about this one, but Shining Force is coming back. It was a Sega RPG back in the day
Yeah.
that me and my brother played quite a bit of. I enjoyed it. It's kind of a weird tactical kind of RPG. It's hard to
Yeah.
describe in the context of this, but it was one of those in the vein of Suikoden where you could have just tons and tons of characters in your group and your team. Well, it's coming back. It's been gone for like years and years and years. I think like something like 30 years, 20 years, something like that. But it's coming back as a mobile game. Something probably going to be akin to the Fire Emblem Heroes sort of mobile game, I would assume. I don't know, but this is kind of a bummer for me. Although if it's free to play, it'll be nice to see a Shining Force property again. But I'd be interested to see how they decide to use it to set themselves apart from the other ones in this genre.
Uh, I think the tactical genre has really kind of came back as of the past few years. I think kind of primarily led by Fire Emblem's sort of resurgence, and then we've got like the Metal Slug games are coming out here soon too.
Right.
So I like the tactics. The tactics is alive and well, and I think at this point it's one of those like, oh shit, they're doing Metal Slug. Let's do Shining Force because that's a thing that
Right.
people know and like.
I wish it wasn't mobile though. I'm not gonna lie. I wish.
I mean, yeah.
It was something a little bit more than that. Honestly.
I remember playing. I remember playing the first Shining Force. I'm pretty sure it's on the Genesis collection for the Xbox 360. I played a little bit of it, not like a lot of it, but I mean enough to know what it is, and like tactics are my jam.
Right.
But again, like you'd said, you don't want it on mobile, and from playing that Fire Emblem mobile game, I already can see the many ways that they're going to try to monetize it, and eventually it's going to get in the way of the actual experience and not be what people want.
Right. 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 I agree. All right. So then moving on, I'll do one more, then you can do one, then I'll finish it off. How does that sound?
Okay.
All right. So the other one I want to talk about is Cyberpunk. Oh,
Yeah.
it's been a while since we talked about Cyberpunk. They finally got onto the PlayStation Store, Neil. They
Yeah.
skyrocketed to number one on the PlayStation Store, and guess what? It's not even in the top 10 anymore.
Yeah.
It's dropped out of the top 10 at this point. 1 month after going into the number one. And you want to know why? Because it's still a shitty game. Still a shitty game, ladies and gentlemen. Still a shitty game.
Yeah, I think that boils down to like those who wanted to get it were going to get it. It's not it's to this point it's had such a saga behind it. You know, if people have been turned off to it, they're turned off to it. They're not going to want it. The only people that bought it were the ones who were going to buy it whenever it went up, you know, and then got taken back down,
Yeah.
or did buy it at that point, got refunds, and decided, hey, maybe I'll try it out again.
Yeah.
And that's why it shot up, stayed there for like a month, and went back down. That's I don't know. I'm wondering what is going to happen with Cyberpunk. I saw an article a little bit ago that apparently just some dude, I guess it's just a person who plays the game, just decided to make his own patch because CDPR has just taken too long with it.
Right.
At this point, there's been such radio silence from them. I mean, they did the same. Hello Games did the same thing with No Man's Sky, but I feel like the No Man's Sky situation was a totally different beast than what this is.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's a completely different beast, and that's 100% true. And that's why No Man's Sky is flourishing. The other thing too is while No Man's Sky kind of false represented themselves, they have done everything in their power to bring that game to where it's supposed to be. They also, when they got all the flack, they shut the fuck up and they worked on the game and they did what they had to get it to the place where, honestly, I like No Man's Sky. It they're still adding stuff to it. There's another thing they're going to add to it soon. We're not exactly sure what it's going to be, but another feature they're going to add to it. They've finally gotten to that game to the place where it was supposed to be when it launched, whereas I don't see any forward motion from Cyberpunk. Everything I've seen online says they've basically gone quiet on it, that there hasn't been any real big updates, and that while they've promised all this DLC, none of it's come out. It's just been patches and patches, and then that's it. So I don't know. There's rumors that they're going to quietly, softly relaunch it. I don't know. I think that it's a different beast because the level of subversion, the level of lying that was given to us by CD Projekt Red, it's so much higher than what we got in No Man's Sky. And No Man's Sky, they've been working every day to make it what they promised us in the first place. You don't see any of that from CD Projekt Red.
Right.
And that's a real problem. So my final one is a little bit more techie, but it's more bullshit about Blizzard. They just keep fucking up. And this one is a little bit... I don't know. I read this story because I didn't quite understand it. And it just bothered me to the core, so I just felt like I had to share it. Diablo 2 will not be launching with TCP... Oh, wait. Was I supposed to give you one now?
I mean, you're fine. You're already started.
Right.
So
Sorry.
go ahead. You're fine.
It's my brain, Neil. I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to step on toes. It will have no TCP/IP support. Now, what this means if you're not super into things, okay, is that you will have to use blizz.net to play it, period. Whereas before, Diablo 2 was something where you could actually connect peer-to-peer. You could connect to other players directly. They're not letting you do that anymore. What they said is that they removed it because of potential security risks, and they want to safeguard their player experience. And everybody's like, that's bullshit. You want us on BlizzNet. That's it. You want to force us on BlizzNet so that you control everything we see. And yeah, people are really upset about it. So yeah, so there won't be any like private games. There won't be any private stuff. Via peer-to-peer, it all has to go through BlizzNet. Just like everything else that they do, which is kind of fucked up in my opinion.
And what's crazy is the reasoning that they gave is, oh well, security. Literally, TCP/IP is transmission control protocol.
Right.
It is
Right.
like the act of connecting between computers and the way to do it properly. Mm-hmm. I don't understand. I don't understand.
They're doing
it's
this...
like they want to piss people off.
Yeah,
like they want to find new ways to piss people off.
Yeah.
I don't get Blizzard.
I mean,
/ Activision, I guess.
The reason they're doing this is very clear to me. This removes any ability to do smaller mods or any good modding in a private, not a private sector, but you know what I mean, like private third party people modding, which Diablo 2 was heavily modded back in the day. You know what I mean? So they're taking that away. They don't want that. They want it all to come through them, and that means so that they can monetize it, so that they can cram stuff down your throat.
The crazy thing is too, like if that's what they're going for, I mean, why don't they just do like they did with the Warcraft Reforged and just put in the EULA that they own anything that you make for it too? Why the hell not at this point?
Right at this point, that would be better than what they're doing.
Yeah. Man. I mean, who cares though? Because Activision's share prices are going up. Heaven forbid that we talk that they have any other news that come out, anything that's good. I mean, there's the whole Cosby suite thing, which if you haven't looked into that. I don't want to get in on a tangent on that, but
Yeah, seriously.
you want to know some ridiculous, crazy shit that they've done, just Google that, and that's the most recent thing that's come out of this whole situation. I don't understand Activision Blizzard. I never really liked like any Blizzard games in the first place, like
Right.
just as games, taking the whole stupid shit that they do, out of consideration.
Right.
But like this is extra. Like I don't know how they can continue to operate
I don't
with
either.
how much bad shit that they've been doing business wise, and especially as of late, like human wise.
I mean, and really, like, yeah. I mean, honestly, at this point, that kind of a story coming out is almost like, oh, okay, whatever. Like they're like violating human rights over here. Like, okay.
And it makes me wonder too if they were like, well, we were gonna do this thing anyway, so we got all this other stuff going on. Let's just drop that now, so maybe it'll get buried by all the other shit that we're doing. I wouldn't be surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised
if that was like an actual strategical, tactical business move on their part.
Let's use the sexual harassment scandal to shield us from the TCP IP scandal. Yeah, I could totally see that. I could totally see that. All right, well, that's it for me and odds and ends, man. I'm pretty sure you're done too, right?
Well, I had the one more.
Oh, goddamn. I've just completely forgot.
It's okay. I guess it's not important.
No. Go. Do it. I'm sorry.
Well, it is actually something that kind of frustrates me, and I kind of get it, but whatever. So, from Halo Reach and Halo 4 and Halo 5, they all have assassinations. So, as you have not played those games, in the previous games, whenever you were to melee somebody from behind, it's the assassination, but nothing happens. You just kind of punch them in the back of the head and they die.
Right.
Well, in later games, they added assassinations to where you actually get a third-person animation when you do it.
Okay.
And they started out cool and they got better as time went on. So like for me, it's one of those things that it's like, man, those are awesome. But they have said that assassinations will not be in Halo Infinite at launch.
Really?
Yeah, they said, and they kind of have a point, because doing the assassination puts you at a disadvantage. So you can choose to, if you just hit your melee button, you'll do the standard punch from behind and kill somebody. But if you push it and hold it, you'll go into the assassination. But when you go into the assassination, you're not safe. So you have a quick little 2-second cutscene essentially that happens. In that period of time, you can still be killed. So they said it puts people who use it as a disadvantage, and why don't
they just give them iframes while they're assassinating somebody?
I don't know. I mean, there are cool moments that can happen. So there are certain special medals that you can get in multiplayer, like Showstopper and Yoink. So if you kill somebody who is in the middle of being assassinated before the person finishes assassinating them, you'll get a Yoink. So it gives you the credit for the kill. And then there's Showstopper if you kill someone who is assassinating someone else. So, and those are cool-ass medals to get, and I love when I get those medals. And I love the assassinations. Honestly, 9 times out of 10, I go for the assassination just because it's so fun and satisfying. But because it puts you at a disadvantage, they're like, oh, we don't want people to, be put on a different level of play than other people, so we're going to bring them back when they add something meaningful to the gameplay, whatever that could entail. It's just kind of a bummer for me, honestly, that they're cutting those.
That is a bummer, man. I'm not going to lie. I don't have high hope for Halo Infinite. Not even because of Halo Infinite, just because I don't trust AAA games anymore. I just don't trust them. I don't trust them at all anymore. They've just let me down so many times in the last 2 years that
yeah.
I just don't have it in me anymore to be that's gonna be a good game. It's just like, nah, it's gonna suck, just like everything else. It's gonna come out. It's gonna have a ton of fucking bugs. Everybody's gonna compare it to No Man's Sky. Everybody's gonna be like, can they pull a comeback? And I'm just so sick of it. I'm just so sick of the rigmarole. I'm so sick of the crap. You know, AAA games. I don't know. I'm having such a hard time getting behind any AAA game I've seen announced.
Right.
And I don't know. But all right, well let's get this done. Get out of here.
Sure.
Horrible Gaming Podcast.
All right, so that brings us to the end of the show and the shameless self-promotion that comes with it. Neil, you got anything you want to promote this week?
No, we're going to be recording. I'm going to assume it's the last half because that's how long it's taken us of the next season of the final part of the Halo 3 ODST, season 4 of Halo Infinite Road. And we're going to finish that to say that we did it, I guess, and then move on to Halo Reach, which I'm excited for.
Yeah, I'm not. I was more excited for ODST. I think we'll probably do one more thing of just Firefight. Maybe we'll do like
we'll probably do
3 episodes of Firefight or something like that.
Something like that.
Just to pad out season 4. But yeah, we're almost done with that. I've actually enjoyed this season. I actually kind of enjoyed this season so far a little bit more than last season. I think we've been a little bit funnier this time around.
Yeah, with this one, I don't know. So far, it just feels easier. And aside from the last episode that we did in the previous recording session, like I know I haven't even died. I don't think you did either.
I don't think so. I might have died once or twice. I died once. I died once because the car rolled over me. Remember?
I think that might have been.
2.
I don't know. I know the time that I died. I'm pretty sure it was in a vehicle because like I came around the corner and something stupid happened or something like that. But I don't know. I feel
the car started to flip and it kicked me out of the car, but then the car kept rolling and it just killed me.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like this game, I had not played ODST before, so I'm going into it completely fresh, and it doesn't feel as difficult, even though I always thought of it as you're just a human-ass human who's squishy, you're not Master Chief, you're gonna die fast. It's not felt that way.
Right, yeah. As far as me and my plugs, I have a date. I announced it on OMFD. I will announce it here. We have a date for the premiere episode of OMGW Season 3, and that will be September the 13th, Monday, at 3 p.m. We will be premiering Season 3, and then it will run for 16 weeks. Before we take another big break before a bonus round and then a season 4 inevitably. But yeah, so September 13th, mark your calendar, everybody. I'm very excited for that. Other than that, the normal stuff, I do want to say I played this last prelude that we did was Kill It With Fire with my wife, but we actually played 2 episodes of Sonic Mania.
Oh.
Yeah, because everybody really liked watching Melissa play Sonic, apparently. So those will be coming out, and then Stella's show has Streets of Rage 4 for the next 2 episodes, which I am super excited about. They're great episodes. And then, of course, Halo Infinite Road. I've got Wasteland 330, which is chugging along nicely. And then we've got all our streams, which we do. It's been a lot of fun on the channel lately. So check out everything we have to offer. We release probably about 10 videos for 1 week of time. So there's something for everybody. Other than that, you can contact us too if you want to on Facebook at OldManGamingDH. You can talk to us on Twitter at OldManGaming9. You can also join our Discord. The link is in the description below, and you can influence this and all of our shows from there. We appreciate your view. And as long as you keep watching and listening to all our stuff, we'll keep making it. See you guys next week.
Neglected to bring sunblock.
Yeah.
And weirdly, only burnt half of my forehead, the tip of my nose, and my knees.
That's always
Don't
how
know
it
how
is.
that happened.
That's always how it is with sunburns. You never get sunburn in like a symmetrical pattern. It's always like the tip of your elbow and one finger and a fucking cheek, you know?
Oh, this past the 4th of July, I magically had that off, so I went over to my grandpa's house, and he's got an in-ground pool, so like that's where everybody hangs out in the summer, and they were having a whole cookout thing. So I got over there. It was about 11 o'clock, and put sunblock on once. I always forget that you have to like reapply it, and it was like 90, 91, not a cloud in the sky that day. I was in the pool from about 11:30 all the way straight through till 6. Oh, I got something that's apparently, I googled it. It's called hell itch. My burn was so deep, I actually got blisters, and it was like the equivalent to like a 2nd or 3rd degree burn that burns below the skin. So when it starts healing, it feels like bugs are crawling under your skin constantly. Oh, it is nightmare inducing. And the worst part is when you try to use like aloe gel or anything, it actually makes it worse. So you have to just fucking take it.
Yeah, that's no fun. That's no
No.
fucking fun.